Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Heidi Magnuson of New Leaf Design. Heidi, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Thank you, Gresh. It's awesome to be here. I've been looking forward to it.
Me too. Definitely been looking forward to this one. And before we jumped in, so you can hear about all the awesomeness that Heidi does, I want to read a little bit more about her so you can hear about all the awesome things that she's doing. And in 2001, Heidi founded New Leaf Design with the mission of listening to the client and putting in that extra effort to create an amazing product. Today, the firm boasts national and local clients with a wide range of work. Heidi's design has been recognized for its excellence by How Magazine, the Web Marketing Association, and the Association of Education Publishers. Heidi, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. So to kick everything off, I wanted to kind of rewind the clock a little bit, hear a little bit more on how you got started. Could you take us through what I call your CEO story? We'll let you get started with the business.
Okay, sure. I was actually a photography major in college. And when I was doing that, I realized that I probably did not have the personality type I'm not in your face wanting to, I just didn't want to do that for photography. And I wasn't really interested in wedding or portrait photography. So I decided I wanted to be a graphic designer from a class that I took during college. And during my summers, got internships and created a working portfolio before I graduated. So that's how I got my first job after college. Is graduated, I had a portfolio, even though I didn't have a degree in design. I had worked for 3 agencies before I graduated college. And then I worked for different agencies for a while. I stopped for a few years, moved to Japan, came back. I had taught English in Japan. I wanted to do something else. And actually the agency that hired me then was really interested because I was a designer that had totally different influences than what they were seeing around here at that point. So they really liked that I had traveled a lot, that I'd been to a lot of different countries, and that actually helped me get the job. I worked for them and was promoted an art director for the web department, which is how I even got started on any web design at all. And then the .coms in this area, or in the Washington, D.C. area, started folding. And our agency lost 70% of its business, probably within about 6 months. And I happened to be pregnant at the time. And I was on maternity leave when everybody got a letter on their desk saying they were either let go or they were on. 50% of the agency got let go that day. And I got a courier letter in the mail. Guy knocked on my door. I had a 3-week-old baby, and it said I was let go. So it was a really rough time. I was terrified. I couldn't really go on job interviews because I had an infant at home. I was supposed to be on maternity leave. I didn't have any plans for who to watch her or what to do. And I just thought, this is my time to try this. When am I ever going to try to start my own business? This is the perfect time. I have a severance package. Everywhere is, in the area is folding. Unemployment is higher than it normally is. So it was just a kind of kick in the butt to do it now or never, and don't complain in the future if you don't get what you want, because you got to try. So I didn't know how to go about getting clients. The first thing I did was randomly find a logo competition online for $150 if they chose your design. You weren't even going to get paid if they didn't. So apparently a bunch of people, I guess, who also didn't have jobs applied for this. And lucky for me, they chose my logo design.
Nice.
And that's how I got my very first $150 that I taped on the wall. That's how New Leaf Design started. And I actually ended up working for that client for a few years. And then when their marketing director left because she was having a baby, she put me in touch with a magazine that she wanted to work on, a community magazine, and they weren't looking for a marketing person. They were looking for a graphic designer. She referred me. They became my largest client for 11 years straight. I built the back of the business on that because it was incoming work every single month. I knew it was coming. I knew when it was coming. I knew how much it would be, and I could feed in other pieces around it. So that's how it got going.
Nice. I love to kind of hear, how you've been able to kind of transition that as somebody who has gotten laid off as well. I know how frustrating that can be. I didn't even have a newborn, so I can't even imagine, what that was or how that is going through. But I love how you said that, just kind of having the mindset or maybe the mentality at the time is just trying to go for it. You don't have anybody else to blame but yourself. And I think obviously during a time like this where so many people are
Yeah.
experiencing layoffs and frustrations and fear, I think a lot of times we need to remind ourselves of that. Even despite the fear, you want to take those steps, and sometimes really phenomenal things can come out of it.
Yeah. In times of change like this, there's a lot of opportunity that can come out of it too. And it is really hard to have that mindset sometimes, and everybody gets down. But I think you're right. There's lots of job shifting going on. There's still tons of people hiring. So, yeah, could be a good time to make changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's definitely a transformational time. So I know we talked a little bit about that change. We changed to New Leaf Design. Can you take us through a little bit more on what you're doing with your clients and how you serve them with all your awesome work?
So over the years, I've kind of developed a real passion for doing nonprofit and association work. I love the idea of helping different groups that have a real, I don't know, a passion or a mission behind what they do. Um, I remember when I first started doing graphic design, I just thought, I don't want to be that person that they're just paying to like throw away ads and nobody really cares about it. And,
Mhm.
I just didn't want to do that type of work. So for me, doing nonprofits and associations are my absolute favorite. Um, I've also joined a networking group too that I do a lot of small local businesses, and that can be fun too. It's not as steady ongoing work, but it's kind of nice to have clients that I can meet or see. Some of the nonprofits aren't really, a lot of them are in this area, but some of them I've worked with people that I've never even met with in person just because they
Mhm.
don't live anywhere near us. So we're always on conference calls or Zoom or whatever, which is typical now, but I do like the small business aspect of it too. But really my passion is nonprofits and associations. And I'd say for local clients, I do a lot of website work. For the nonprofits and associations, it's usually around their events and their conferences and their marketing materials, not as much their website, other than doing, banners, because a lot of them have huge established websites with big databases behind them. So,
Nice. And I absolutely love that. And it kind of sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, those service-based entrepreneurs, those entrepreneurs that are doing their organization or their business that have a really strong mission behind it. I imagine that when you get to design, as you said, it's not just design it for somebody to see it, but it's designing to really make a change and make an impact that
well,
sometimes even goes farther
yeah,
amongst the mission.
yeah, no, I love doing that. Yeah. And
Nice.
it's fun
And
to learn all about it too.
yeah,
Part of what
exactly.
I love about my job is just learning about all the different things that are going out there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was actually going to ask that because um, you mentioned that photography aspect that you have kind of in your back pocket, so to speak.
Mhm.
Do you feel like that has helped you in your business, but also in maybe interacting with clients or even from a creativity standpoint?
Oh, definitely. I think they just go hand in hand. And I think that if you don't have a good eye for photography, you don't have a good eye for design either, because
Mm,
half of design is how you're representing what people want to come across. And a lot of that can be with photography or illustration. And I'm not a wordsmith as much as I am just really visually love doing that sort of thing. And photography plays right into all of that. So even though I don't do it very much professionally, I do a little bit of it professionally. Um, it just helps in being able to pick out things and think of projects with, I don't know, kind of a different eye than they're used to seeing with photography.
yeah.
So I really enjoy that part of it. But so many clients right now there's just millions of stock photos out there. And
Hmm.
there's really fun things you can do with them. So I find it few and far between that people are actually hiring a lot of photographers, unless it is photographers like at their big events, like their conventions or their, then they hire people, or for their headshots business
Yeah.
wise. But a lot of companies aren't paying to get those high end studio shots that they used to do for a marketing piece. They're just not doing that because you can find it online.
Yeah. No, that makes so much sense. And being able to kind of, I've always felt like that, I guess creativity is kind of like a muscle. When you're able to kind of flex that out in different ways,
Mm-hmm.
it manifests itself obviously in something you're designing, but obviously in the photography in so many different ways. But I think
Mm-hmm.
you have to continue to kind of flex that muscle or work out that muscle, or else sometimes you might lose it, so to speak.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And it's fun. I mean, I view creativity, you can do it in so many ways. So I don't know, I might have mentioned this before too, but I think it's all interrelated. I love interior design. I love all those house flipping shows that everybody's addicted to.
Yes.
I love colors. I love nature. I love painting. All of it, I think, just all visual.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you feel like I was going to ask you now for what I call your secret sauce. Do you feel like being able to kind of tap into those different I guess modalities of creativity is what you feel kind of helps and sets you and New Leaf Design apart?
Yeah. And also, I mean, yeah, I think you can get influences from anywhere. And if you're a creative person, you often do. So you can't just always look at the same avenue. I don't know what you would call my secret sauce, but I do like one trick I use if I'm just struggling with
Hmm.
a design and I can't do it, then, I'll set it aside for a day or 3 days, or, I go for a run or a walk or do something completely different where I'm not thinking of it at all. And all of a sudden it's just like when it comes and it's just goes and it's easy, but sometimes you just can't drag it out and it takes hours. So just
Hmm.
do something else, do something mundane. There's a million things you have to do in your business. So if you're a creative professional, do one of those other things and then come back to it.
That's extremely powerful because I think so many times, like especially if you want to get something done, you try to charge through it, but being able to kind of take a step back and I think for you, even from what I hear, like even and funny enough, I had one of my buddies that I went to Japan to visit him because he was teaching English. So
Oh,
when you said that, that resonated with me because I think
yeah.
exactly exactly it's like such I think when you have that ability or if you built up that kind of creative I guess genius so to speak, you're able to kind of step away but you're able to kind of tap into so many different aspects, whether it be going to Japan or you
Yeah.
mentioned the interior design or obviously the photography, and so many of those different aspects can manifest itself when you kind of get away and come back.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is important not to try and push it, I think. Sometimes the best ideas come when you have let it ruminate for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit and I
Mhm.
wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
Oh, this was the question that I thought was the hardest.
Really?
Yeah. um, I would say my downfall is probably because of the creative side of my personality. I'm not really good with the organization side, and I
Mhm.
will be watching your other podcasters to figure out more of that. Um, I guess my hack is just being able, like you said, to kind of what I said before, just be able to recharge, take a break, know when you are at your limit and step away from it, be able to balance your work and your family and your schedule as much as you can, because life is a balance of all of it. And if you're always working or you can't live like that. So I guess it's not a hack, but the thing that I'm always trying to figure out is balance. And I think that's really important. And I get more balance if I could get a scheduling hack.
There you go. No, I mean, I think that's a phenomenal hack, and it's so funny because we were talking before I hit the record button. I was like Heidi was like, "You sound like you need a vacation," because I was talking about all the things, and I think that so many times we forget that we're kind of a holistic person. We think, okay, if we just drive through our work, then we will be okay in our relationships or with our loved ones, our friends. But in reality, it all goes together. So if you're not charging yourself in one aspect, it can affect so many other aspects. So I love that hack because it's something we often, or at least I often forget about.
Yes, and I have been battling it for 18 years in business. It's a constant adjustment. Yeah,
Yes, it's a lifelong struggle.
during these times, as we are probably going to talk about. But yeah,
Hmm.
because of the COVID times and everybody being at home and stuck there, it's a lot harder to balance everything. It
Yeah.
requires a whole nother shift in how you think about it.
Yeah. And it's kind of one of those, obviously, I think, unexpected shifts because it's not something that you plan for a global pandemic. It's something that
Yeah,
happens and
you
it
can't plan for
changes
that.
your entire life.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
now I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO nugget. And this could be a word of wisdom or a piece of advice. It might be something you would tell a client, or if you hopped into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
Oh boy. Um, I don't know. I think I think maybe my nugget would be never afraid to be afraid to try new things, because that's always where the growth happens and has happened for me. And the things that I've been the most scared to do have been the things that are the most rewarding to me. Um, Starting the business was very rewarding. I was terrified to do it. When I first started web design, I had no idea what I was doing. That was 10 years ago. I had a client offer to pay me, and I told him flat out, I have never designed a website. I don't know what I'm doing. He's like, well, I'm going to really not pay you much. So if you mess it up, I don't care. And, but just trying to always take the next step and trying to push yourself further. And, same with business networking and trying to put yourself out there, just keep after it, because those are the opportunities where you grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great reminder. And do you find like during those times or in the past when you had those times, especially that there was something that made you, I guess, feel like you were able to kind of take those steps and you weren't just like, oh, I don't know how to do that? Or was it just kind of things just got in line at the right time?
I think the thing that has mainly pushed me is when I start to get bored or I start to get complacent and I know that what I'm doing, I can do it in my sleep. And that's not challenging. It's not going to keep me active. It's not going to keep me passionate about what I do. So it's almost like every time that I've gotten to something like that in my career, I've really needed a shift to take it to the next level. And I think that's when it happens. And I think that a lot of times when you're faced with that sort of thing, you might start to look for the opportunities that maybe were there. You just weren't taking them before. Your eyes become open to them. You realize that there's other things that you could be doing. But it takes a while to really think about that. But as soon as you start to look, you realize they're out there. Maybe you just haven't been looking for them. And I think that's really when change has happened for me, and that I've pushed myself, but not before that point, not until I'm, kind of get bored or what else am I going to do?
Yeah. Yeah, my word is restless. Sometimes I get restless and into thinking like, okay, I feel like something needs to change. And I love how you said sometimes when you feel those moments and you feel that frustration or bored or being bored, you often try to look for something that's 30 miles down the line when sometimes those things are right in front of you, and maybe you just didn't necessarily pursue those signs or pay attention to that quiet voice that was telling you to do X, Y, and Z. But then being open to those opportunities allows you to kind of take those steps.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And like I said, as soon as you start talking about things and get excited about things, you'll find other people join you in
Yeah.
that and they want to help you. And, it's naturally what you're excited about and it's what other people want to do to help you too when you
Hmm.
start sharing that. So
Yeah.
I think excitement is contagious that way.
Absolutely. It gives people kind of reminders that they can do it as well too, which is what I loved about your story, because I think again, so many people are afraid of maybe, taking that step or doing that thing that they might have always wanted to do. But sometimes with these disruptive times, those opportunities emerge and you can have great award-winning designs as well, just like Heidi.
Yeah. Yay.
Yes. So now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on this show. So Heidi, what does being a CEO mean to you?
I think being a CEO means that you are in charge of your destiny. I mean, you can decide when you want to work, what you want to do, how you want to shape your business, how you want to, if you want to live a holistic life where you're balancing your work and your family and your vacation time and do things that you're passionate about. If you're your own boss, you can go whatever direction you want. And I think that's truly powerful to be able to do that. And it's awesome. And I think I may be forever broken for working for anybody else.
You and me both. And I think it's so funny because I often, you definitely appreciate that. I often talk about the CEO as being kind of like an artist, and you have a blank canvas. So you get to kind of paint the picture that you want. And just
Mhm.
as you kind of spoke about, how much time you're going to spend with family, how much time you're going to spend in work, you get to kind of paint that, adjust it, and change it at your whim, so to speak, to some degree. And then it gets to be that masterpiece that you want to be your CEO or your business or your entrepreneurial
Yeah.
venture.
And you can change it and shift it as you want. And it's your, if you're in a job, you don't necessarily have that option. But if you're a CEO and you are interested in something different, you can start to steer the business that way. It's great. It's nice to have the flexibility.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Heidi, truly appreciate that definition. I appreciate your time even more. What I wanted to do is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best they can get a hold of you and find out about all the awesome things you're working on.
Oh, okay. Well, Heidi at New Leaf Design, Heidi Magnuson. It's new-leaf-design.com. And lots of hyphens, which as a web designer, I did not know then. I know now. That's really terrible. So I will never advise you to do that. Reach me at Heidi at new-leaf-design.com. And I don't know. I just think that it's great to try and take a chance and to pursue things. And especially right now, when, as Gresh and I were talking, everything is changing for so many people. There's so many opportunities, and nobody knows what this is going to be like in the future and how it's going to forever change real retail space and offices. And so try to look for opportunities and don't be afraid to change, because sometimes it's the best thing that you can do.
Absolutely. And to make it even easier, we will have the links and information in the show notes as well so that you can get in touch with Heidi. But I definitely appreciate that, reminder, because so many times I always heard that kind of change is kind of like being on jungle gyms. And if you don't let go of the jungle gym before you to swing to the next one, you'll be stuck exactly where you are. And I think we can't be afraid to kind of let go and swing to the next jungle gym so that we can kind of progress and take those steps and evolve as individuals. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And
And
I
you're
hope,
good at this.
thank you. And I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Oh, thank you.
All
Take care.
right. All right. And I'll cut it off here. Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh again from the I Am CEO podcast, and I had a very special guest on the show, and it was Heidi Magnuson of New Leaf Design, and we had a phenomenal podcast episode where we talked a lot about design and the importance of that, but also too about the importance of kind of going out on maybe a limb, so to speak, or just going and pursuing those things sometimes we're so afraid to do in our businesses or even in our lives. So Heidi, for people that are just listening to this aspect of the podcast and the interview, can you take us through a little bit more about you and what you do to kind of help support clients you work with?
Sure. So I'm a graphic designer. I do both print and web work. And a lot of times when I get a new client, it's because they want to do a website redesign or they want a new logo or something like that. And the very first thing that I take them through before we do anything else is kind of like a questionnaire where you're analyzing your business, because until you do that, you're not really thinking about what direction you should even be going with a new website or with a new logo. So a lot of the questions become, how do you feel like your business should be represented? What adjectives, what 5 adjectives would be the best way to describe yourself? Who's your primary audience? Who's your secondary audience? Who are your customers? And a lot of times people also think that, especially on websites, that they have to do all the bells and whistles, but there's some people that really just don't need that. So you have to decide what the point is for your website first, and then everything else falls into place. It's the usability. It's what path do you want to take for your users when they come to the site? What is the purpose of the site? Same with a logo design. What image are you going to present? What colors, all sorts of colors. We won't go into it here, but they have different meanings and different, when you see something that's red, you're maybe thinking stop or alert, emergency, medical. Blue is trust and, longevity and security. So how do you want to portray your company? And what does that mean? And then that serves as the basis, once you've thought about that, for branching off into all the other decisions you make. And unless you have that introductory piece, you're not really going to know which direction to go. And you could be spinning your wheels, and then you could end up with pieces that are just kind of everywhere that aren't cohesive, and you don't really have a brand. So you have to realize who you are as a business when you're going through this process.
Nice. I absolutely love that. And I know that, from an SEO standpoint, especially too, so many times people just jump in and they have no idea of what their brand stands for, what their values are, what they try to, or how they would even communicate with clients. And I love that you kind of go through those aspects, because I think, it sounds like you sometimes might have experienced the same thing, where sometimes people are just like, hey, I want a logo, and then they walk away and you have no information to kind of go from.
Oh yeah, I will never, not anymore.
Yeah.
I've learned that lesson many times. Yeah, you really need to, because that also gets buy-in from the company and acceptance of what direction you want to go to. So they're comfortable with it. It's not just a blank wall. And it helps them narrow down things for themselves too. So I would say to anybody who's looking for a designer you need to make sure you have somebody who really takes the time to understand your business and your brand, or else how could they represent it?
Yeah, exactly. I love that. How can they represent it? I love because one of the things that came up during the interview is we talked about, you focusing on, especially not just only, but those small businesses, but those nonprofit organizations, and especially those organizations that it sounded like were really mission driven. And I think that if you're going to be the one that's creating the logo or the banner that goes on the website or the website itself, you want to be really dialed into what that means. So not only do you see that visually, but it kind of speaks to you on an even deeper level, it sounds
Mm-hmm.
like.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you mentioned like some of those questions that you kind of go through.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is that something that you feel like you kind of go through with clients, or the client should already figure or know about it themselves, or is that something you kind of go through your process?
Well, I go through it a little in basically what I do is I send them the questions first if
Mhm.
we're approaching a big job like this. Um, and then, sometimes I get people back that like they're just answering one word for something and, like that's not going to help anybody. So then I know we have to have a big call and we have to like go through it. And then I have other people that'll give me pages and pages of information, and that's awesome. It's kind of different clients do it different ways, but either way, it's finding whatever works best for your client too. So if they're not going to be the kind of person that's going to sit down and answer the questions, maybe you can talk them through it. And, one way or the other, I think it's a very important step. How you get to it might be different with different clients, but I at least start out with, here's the questionnaire, and then we're going to have, a discovery session basically about it. So, but yeah, I think it's an important stage. And it's funny because after clients have gone through and we get to the very end, I've had a lot of clients say, like, oh, I thought it was such a pain in the beginning. And now this was awesome. It really made us think about the business. And it also helps clarify for you, because if you haven't really thought about that in a while, even if you're just going through the business and taking the motions, maybe you really haven't sat down and thought, like, is this the direction? Are we headed in the right direction? Is this being represented the right way? So I think it's also, as a lot of people say, it's a working on your business versus working in your business. And sometimes it's hard to step back and do that. But with a person like me who's coming in to design and learn about your business, it almost forces you to look at it, how it might be viewed by somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of get that new perspective with all that experience that you have as well too, to be able to kind of see exactly what you are communicating throughout your brand. And it's funny how you were mentioning that, because I was gonna ask you, like, obviously during a time like this, I think if not the word of 2020, it should be the word as pivot or a change or disruption. One of those words is definitely the words. You mentioned that a lot of times when businesses may do this in the very beginning of when they get started, there sometimes is a period where you have to kind of check in and make sure, is that in alignment? This sounds like for most, if not all businesses, one of those periods where you're
Yeah.
trying to pivot or change. Is that something that you would recommend, like during this time, to really check in on, your brand, what exactly you're communicating, and those things like that?
Oh, absolutely. Because there's different, as we were talking about, this is going to reshape businesses in general, not, I don't think, just for the time being too. For an example, I have one of my biggest association clients is a music-based teaching association. So they represent teachers all throughout the United States. And what they were saying is that it's very hard for teachers to get away to go to big national conventions, and they don't have the money. So unless their school systems are willing to pay for it, they often don't go. So if they are shifting and looking at it and saying, well, this year we have to make it virtual, what about have that option every single year moving forward for the future? Why not? And it's causing them to think like, hey, maybe this is something we should have always offered our teachers, because this might be a better option. We might get double the amount of attendees because it's easier for them to do a convention this way than it is for them to fly out and do it in person. And so I think there's a lot of businesses that are reassessing what they're doing. And I mean, that's just one example of, I'm sure, of thousands. And lots of my clients that are nonprofits and associations, they have big yearly events, and all of them are struggling to figure out. I mean, I just had a call with a client today who a lot of their attendees are military and government people. And so their concerns are, how secure could you make an online convention? You know, is this going to be possible? Can you build a site where the military would be happy to sit on a virtual, you know, convention and discuss things? Maybe not. Maybe that's not the best option for them. So just a lot of thinking, and what are you going to do, and how are you going to plan this, and is technology feasible? So, you know, one end security, and the other end, how good is the musical quality that comes across the systems? You know, there's so many things to think about, so many pieces, but I think everybody, like you said, is in that pivoting moment with their business, trying to decide what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I remember that, one of the words that you kind of, brought up, during the interview was the word opportunity. And a lot of times when those disruptive or things happen, in the world, there's often seeds of opportunity that are laid out there. So I think in having those conversations and thinking about it and using our creative muscle, as we kind of talked about during the show, it sometimes will lead us, if we jump into it, if we go into it, like we kind of talked about, during the show, that opportunity that we never would have thought would have been anything if we didn't kind of go forward and jump.
Right. And it's almost like you're being made to look for them now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a force. You gotta figure this out.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to shift your business and make it survive, you got to think about it, figure it
Mm-hmm.
out. Which is
Yeah.
great. It's exciting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exciting and scary at the exact
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah.
But that's where all the magic happens.
Yeah.
So, Heidi, truly appreciate that. And I appreciate your time even more. Again, what I want to do is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you want to let our readers and listeners know. And of course, if they're just listening to this, how best they can get a hold of you.
My work is on my website, which Gresham is going to be putting up, and my email as well. I would love to hear from you and your thoughts, and just thank you for listening, and best of luck in your pivots and your businesses as well, because it is an exciting and a scary time. But if you keep positive, and I guess fake it until you make it, right? You'll get there.
Yes, absolutely. And you definitely need to do that. And there's so many times where we're kind of afraid to be able to kind of take those steps, but sometimes we don't realize our own genius, or
Mhm.
kind of appreciate our own genius might be a better way to say that. And I think,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
On taking chances, like you're
Hmm.
saying, appreciate your own genius and have faith in yourself. And if you are a person that truly cares about it and cares about what you're doing, that will come through, and you will make it, because you will look for opportunities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, we'll have the links and information, just like Heidi mentioned, in the show notes so that everybody can follow up with you. But I appreciate you again, Heidi. And
Thanks,
I
Greg.
hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. It's awesome talking to you.